What steps should you take to start off a new project on the right foot and set customer and team expectations for smoother project delivery? I'm Tony Zink, and this is the Project Guide. Hi folks, Tony Zink here, project management author and trainer and creator of the Project Manifesto. I show people how to use tools and techniques to get better results faster on their projects, whether that means saving time, saving money, reducing risks, or providing a more stress-free and pleasant experience for everyone involved in your project. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing or following me on this channel. If you're not tuning in directly on my website, tonyzink.com, then you can go there to get the video for this episode and others like it, the audio podcast for this episode, the entire written transcript, and other goodies too. Have you ever gone over budget on a project, missed timeline commitments, or delivered something different from what your customer was expecting on a project? Have you ever had to spend extra time or money reworking a project deliverable to produce what your customer wanted, making them and your team frustrated? Maybe you've worked on a fixed fee project where you agreed to produce the end product for your customer for a fixed price, but you lost profits reworking the deliverables to produce what the customer wanted. Project teams often encounter these types of problems when you don't take the time to lay down the proper foundation for your project from the very beginning. This should include, among other things, such as detailed plans and schedules, a full understanding of what your customer wants, as well as their full understanding of what to expect from you and your project team. I'm going to share with you a 4-step process for discovering and clarifying these things with your project customer in an effort to make things run more smoothly throughout your next project. There are several other planning activities that you should be doing at the beginning of every project, but I'm focusing here on the steps that I think you should take up to open up communications and outline everyone's expectations for your project. Step number 1 in my 4-step process is to connect with your project customer. The person or entity who requested the project that you're about to start, otherwise known as the requester, the client, or the customer, should be your main focus at this early stage of a new project. One of the most important keys to a successful project is connecting with them, establishing a good relationship with them, and fully understanding what they need. Every project has a customer. It may be the person at your company who made the request for the new project. It may be the person who will be purchasing the end product that you're producing, or it may be a representative or your main point of contact for the company who is purchasing the end product. It's not necessarily the person who assigned the project to you, such as your manager or your boss. Identify who your customer is and work directly with them to identify the project scope, develop your plan, and review your team's deliverables along the way. Sometimes it may not be entirely clear who the real customer is. You may need to initially be introduced to the customer, or you may be initially introduced to an assistant of theirs or some other third-party intermediary. If it becomes clear that your initial point of contact cannot answer your questions or make decisions about the project, then they are likely not your true customer. So you'll need to find out who that really is and start engaging them in the conversation. Working through a third-party intermediary will only cause communication problems and delays, so make every effort to work directly with your customer and avoid those problems. If your customer or your company insists on working with an intermediary because of time constraints, process rules, or legal requirements, then of course you'll need to include them in your conversations with the customer. But do your best to speak directly with the customer and keep the intermediary informed of every interaction that you have with them. You'll get the clearest messages by speaking and working directly with your customer, so you should make this a priority. Step number 2 is to establish the rules of engagement for your project. Once you've established contact with your project customer and started assembling your project team, the next step that I recommend you take to establish trust and ensure that everyone understands everyone else's expectations is to explain to everyone how you plan to run the project. Every project is different, every project team is different, every project customer is different, and every project manager is different. Therefore, it's very important that you set aside some time at the beginning of every project to make sure that everyone understands how you will be running the project. Explain to your customer how you plan to run the project. Don't assume that they will know how the project will be run, especially if you've never worked with them before. Many project managers have different styles, different practices that they follow, and different expectations, so spell it out for your customer. Itemize everything that you, as the project manager, will do throughout the project, such as you will document and track everything that you and the customer are responsible for. You will create a project timeline with important delivery and approval dates. You will agree with the customer on approval criteria. You will provide regular status updates to the customer, and so forth. Explain also to the project team how you plan to run the project. Don't assume that they will know how you'll be running the project, especially if you've never worked with them before. Explain your timing, work effort, cost, quality, responsiveness, and risk expectations of the project team. Itemize everything that you, the project manager, will do throughout the project, such as you will provide a project schedule with assignments and track progress on a predefined cadence. You will create a log to track all issues, action items, decisions, changes, and so forth with due dates. The project team members will be expected to provide regular status updates and participate in productive team meetings, and so forth. Ask your customer about their expectations of how the project should be run also, since they may have special requirements or techniques that they found to be successful on past projects. They may have requests that require adjustments to your standard operating procedures though, so evaluate each request against your standard practices and incorporate them as you see fit. Even if you aren't able to adopt all of their requests, they should appreciate the opportunity to make suggestions. Explain to your customer your expectations of them as well, in terms of their responsiveness, their input and approvals, their payment schedule, if it's a project where they'll be paying you for your deliverables, and so forth. This can prevent a lot of discomfort, frustration, and uncomfortable conversations later in the project. Document everything that you've discussed and share the documentation with the customer and the project team. Hopefully you, your customer, and your team will never need to refer to it. But in the event that a disagreement does arise over any expectations throughout the project, you'll be glad that you took the effort to do this step. You can think of this as a project insurance policy that you hopefully will never need to collect on. Step number 3 is to describe your customer's desired outcomes. After you've connected with the customer and established their rules of engagement, the next step is to work with your customer to define and fully understand what they would like to accomplish by completing the project. Every project should have a purpose. Otherwise, your customer would not have made the decision to spend the time or the money to go through the exercise, and you should understand why they made that decision. Whether you're building a house for them, designing a manufacturing process for them, or moving their corporate headquarters from Dallas to Detroit, you will best serve them by understanding their desired outcomes for the project. Ask your customer what they wish to accomplish when the project is complete. Are their motives financial, such as generating more revenue, maximizing profits, or cutting expenditures? Do they wish to beat their competitors to market with a new product? Or do they wish to minimize risks, such as system downtime or exposure to lawsuits? Work with them to describe what they see as their desired end product that your team will produce for them. Answer who, what, when, where, why, and how types of questions about the end product. Who will use the end product? What will the end product do? When will they use the end product, and where will they use the end product? And so forth. We're not designing the end product here. We're only trying to identify and describe the customer's desired outcomes. Your team of experts can later work with the customer to design the optimal end product that should deliver their desired outcomes. If you take the time to go through this exercise, then you can later use your new list of desired outcomes to evaluate the end product after it's been completed and measure whether or not it meets the customer's needs. Once you've identified and described your customer's desired outcomes, add them to your scope, charter, or statement of work document for the project. This document is your written agreement or contract with your customer. If you add these items and your customer formally approves the document, then their expectations are clear for everyone on the project team. Step number 4 is decompose and plan. In this final step of the 4-step process, you're going to take what you've learned about your customer's desired outcomes, break them down further, and devise a plan for delivering exactly what your customer wants. At the end of your project, this is what everyone wants: you, your customer, and your project team. So if your team can succeed at delivering it to them while following the rules of engagement that you've agreed to, then everyone involved should feel like they accomplished something important. Your customer received exactly what they needed, your team delivered it for them, and you made it all happen. Decompose the end product, or main deliverable, into smaller deliverables that are easier to plan, design, and track. Then list those deliverables in the scope document for your project. You'll likely need your team's technical expertise to help with this, and it would be a good idea to get your feedback from your customer to validate that you're on the right track. Next, use those main deliverables from the scope document to build a work breakdown structure, or WBS, for your project. It should look like a hierarchical diagram or outline describing how to decompose the main deliverable, or end product, into smaller components and subcomponents. This breakdown will make it much easier for you to estimate, plan, and track progress for your project, and you can use it to generate a detailed project schedule. Once you have a good WBS that accurately describes the components of your customer's end product, create a plan that describes how each deliverable should be created, delivered, and approved. For example, if you're building a new manufacturing process for your customer, one of the deliverables will likely be a set of design drawings for the process. So you'll need to create a mini plan for how your team will create, deliver, and approve those drawings. After running through that exercise, you should have a collection of mini plans that you can assemble and organize into a project schedule. A detailed, well-structured project schedule is the foundation for planning and executing any successful project. It should contain all of your project deliverables, represented as milestones, all of the activities or tasks required to produce those deliverables, and all of the people or other resources required to complete those activities. So to wrap up, if you successfully follow these 4 steps at the beginning of every project, connect with the customer, establish the rules of engagement, describe their desired outcomes, and decompose and plan, then you should do a much better job of staying within your project budgets, meeting your deadlines, and meeting your customers' expectations, minimizing the extra time and money spent reworking project deliverables to produce what your customer wants, and maximizing your profits on fixed-fee projects. Thanks for tuning in and spending this time with me. I hope that you've enjoyed these tips and that you find them useful. I'd like to take a quick moment though and remind you of these 2 things. Number 1, if you're not tuning in directly on my website, then you can visit my site at tonyzink.com. You can watch this video and others like it. You can listen to the audio podcast. You can read the entire written transcript, and you can find other goodies there too. And number 2, please post your thoughts in the comments section. Do you have any questions, tips, or recommendations that you'd like to share? How do you handle situations like this? Some of the best questions and tips come from folks like you, the project management community, the people who are out there in the trenches every day working on projects. So definitely connect with everybody down in the comments section. And until I see you next time, go back out there and keep building great things.